Hello, and welcome to the Telescope Show. We laugh, we discover God, and we totally nerd out. My name is Matthew Seipel Anderson.
And I am Katie Seipel Anderson.
Thank you so much for listening. Today we are talking about new Lord of the Rings movies. Coming down the pike. Yes, it has been confirmed. They are coming.
We just don't know when.
We just don't know when. But Katie, speaking of all this stuff, did you know that Peter Jackson, of course, he's the director of the original Lord of the Rings trilogy films, he sold visual effects firm Weta Workshop for $1.6 billion.
Visual effects firm? So that's like
That's
props?
what they call it. Yeah.
Huh. That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. This division of Weta, according to this website, BBC News, a little website, you know.
You know this weird website out there.
According to the BBC, they write a division of Weta Digital, which has worked on films including The Lord of the Rings and Avatar, is being bought by video game software company Unity. And Unity is a company that has worked on games like Pokemon Go and Call of Duty. So that's pretty interesting. Call of Duty is massive. I remember when Pokemon Go was pretty massive.
Yeah. I really never got into any of those, so I'm wowed by this pretty much from the dollar amount perspective.
Yeah.
But it makes sense with all of that.
I mean, $1 billion is 1,000 million.
I mean, I'd be cool with just $1 million.
That's 1,600 millions. 1.6 billion.
It's a lot of money.
You'd have to have a lot of Pokemon Go subscribers and Call of Duty subscribers to make that much money.
The potential, man.
Apparently it's there. I remember back when we were doing youth ministry, and we were in this church that was sort of set back in the woods, and it had a long driveway, and one of the youth kids was just begging me to be able to walk down the driveway to the end because he looked on his phone and he saw that there was a Pokemon at the end of our driveway. And you had to walk to the physical locations where these things were, and then you'd hold up your phone. You ever play before?
I never played it. I know enough about it to know that that's how it works.
Yeah, and so I let him.
Youth ministry.
So I walked him down there, and he and I battled the Pokemon at the end of our church driveway. It was pretty epic. A good bonding time.
Well, Matt.
Well, Katie.
Would you rather be an extra in one of the Lord of the Rings movies or an extra in one of the Hobbit movies?
Gotta go Lord of the Rings. Because that's people love Lord of the Rings to the point where I feel like those movies now have classic status like the original Star Wars, where the Hobbit kind of suffered the same as like the prequel in Star Wars, like the prequel trilogy, where a lot of
not as bad as that.
Not as bad.
The Hobbit movies are way better than yeah.
But it is similar.
Yeah,
in my opinion, it's a little similar. People are like,
they're
too
a little
much
more classic. The original. Okay. So then a follow up. Would you rather be an elf, a dwarf, a hobbit, a human, or an orc?
Oh man, I think it would be the hardest to be an orc.
Or a wizard.
Oh man. Okay, well, if wizard was an option, like there was an extra wizard, I would totally go for that.
That might not work. You could be
awesome.
one of those tree guys, though. The tree herder guys. There's a few kind of extra-ish type characters in tree herder guys. I can't think of an extra wizard, though.
That'd be pretty cool.
They're kind of all main characters.
Here's the thing. If I was an extra, I would want to be an extra that could either A, die on camera.
Oh, good.
Or have some little throwaway line like, ah, or attack.
I would
Something like
totally
that.
want to be the extra that didn't die, because then there's a chance you could pop back someplace else.
That's true. Some extras actually being used in multiple scenes, they just change their clothes.
Wow. Oh, goody.
I bet if you were an orc, you'd get to die multiple times because they all look sort of alike. And
Probably. Why train in more people? Just have the same person die over and over.
oh yeah, in fact, I think it's kind of common practice to have a line of extras in the shot and then fill in behind them with digital recreations. They, save some money that way. So, you know what? Maybe I'm just going to go orc.
Maybe you can be reproduced multiple times then, digitally and having multiple roles.
That would be so cool. You know what would scare me, though, about being an orc? Is this. I've never had glasses before, and I've never put in a contact lens in my life.
Oh, so scary.
And it seems a little scary to me. I mean, you're putting this thing in your eye, especially like those cat eye, freaky looking ones,
See, that wouldn't even be a consideration since that's my life.
I would totally be willing to do it. I'm just saying it would come with a little trepidation for me.
I wouldn't want to wear like a face mask for a long time.
How about like a prosthetic nose and stuff?
I don't think I'd like it.
I don't think I'd like it, but it wouldn't be that big of a deal.
That's like way worse to me than contacts.
Maybe we can both be an extra someday.
I just don't want to be an orc, though. I kind of feel like I'd have to be a hobbit, for my size. Maybe a human. I could be a human too. You could be an elf. You're like long and thin.
As long as there's a convincing wig to cover this bald
Well,
head.
that's a good point. I do have the hair for an elf or a dwarf.
So, Katie, how does this strike you? Someone comes up to you and says, we've decided, you're like an executive. Hey, I'm a film executive, and we've decided to make new Lord of the Ring movies. What's your reaction?
I have some questions.
Just so you all know, I'm looking at a little bit of a scowl across this table.
Defiant glare.
Right.
What are you doing with this?
Nobody wants...
Is it going to be like the prequel from the Star Wars?
Yeah, so fans came out en masse because Warner Brothers and I think it's New Century Media announced that they're going to make these new Lord of the Ring movies. And people were like, what? You can't remake the Lord of the Rings? Don't worry. They're not going to reboot the Lord of the Rings. It's going to be a little different.
Yeah, but what if it's like the prequels with the Star Wars thing? I mean, Star Wars has this like depth, classic. They're just like good, even though they were created decades ago. We still really like watching them. And then it's like they have like some standards here.
Yeah, it's true. And they're kind of getting into like territory. And what if they do something in one of these that affects the storyline or affects how we see the originals, and then it's really disappointing? I agree completely.
And so it's not the same people, because I actually thought that the Amazon series was pretty good. It's not the same people doing these, though, right?
Correct. Yeah, Amazon just has the rights to the television stuff, the small screen stuff, and this Warner Brothers, New Century Media has the rights to make more movies.
Were they the ones that created the original?
Yes.
Do they have the director already picked out?
No. There are not a lot of details at this point. However, we are getting sort of the first one of these movies in 2024, but it's not going to be live action. It's coming in the form of an anime.
Oh, really?
Yeah, an animated Lord of the Rings story. I don't know if they're just testing
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
This story comes from the OneRing.net, which, if you've got a website called the OneRing.net, you're pretty serious about Lord of the Rings stuff.
Maybe.
It's a movie called War of the Rohirrim. And here's a description of it. Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim. The original anime feature from New Line Cinema and Warner Brothers Animation is set to release April 12th, 2024. Set roughly 2 centuries before the events of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, the War of the Rohirrim will explore the exploits of Helm Hammerhand, the King of Rohan, and the creation of Helm's Deep, the stronghold featured in Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings: Two Towers.
So it almost does seem like they're kind of taking a playbook out of Star Wars, though. Because Star Wars has a whole series, or multiple series even, of animated films.
Yeah, completely. And yeah, I don't know, again, and maybe they're just testing the water to see how people react to this kind of thing. It's like a Middle-earth story that's not going to interfere with anything really, but just a story that's out there.
A side story.
Yeah.
Like The Mandalorian. Or...
As a fan, when I heard that, I was relieved, actually.
Whew. That was a close one. I'll be able to sleep tonight now.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I love Lord of the Rings. For me, it has a very special place in my heart. I think Lord of the Rings is a very spiritual story. And, you know, much has been written about Tolkien's personal faith in Christ and how that affected his work. I think it's really obvious when you even watch the films. I was thinking about the scene where Frodo's laying there and he's been stabbed by that evil blade and he's like fading and becoming a ring wraith. And all of a sudden he's sort of seeing between the worlds. And when the elf approaches, he sees her all lit up and glowing and golden. It's like he sees her spiritual essence. But then he also sees like the evil essence of Sauron. And it's like this good versus evil in a really spiritual sense, not just in a natural sense. That really resonates with me because that is a part of my personal worldview. I see the world as not just natural, but also spiritual. I think people have a spiritual side to them, which could include, you know, your will and your emotions and the immortal part of you that is going to be with God. And I think this world is a battle between good and evil. And even within ourselves, there's this battle of which side of us is going to prevail. Are we going to be in the image of God, or are we going to be worshiping an idol of self and giving into these darker inclinations? So the whole light and dark thing really connects to me as a Christian and makes Lord of the Rings a special series. So when I hear that someone's going to mess with it, I get a little nervous.
That's legitimate. When something is kind of special to you in general, you don't want to see it trampled on or ruined in any way.
I'm glad you understand.
I do. I'm reading you. I'm done making fun of it now. I understand. Understand more clearly.
So I'm sitting here with my copy of The Lord of the Rings, the 3-in-1. It says the complete best-selling classic 50th anniversary. It's a new word. 50th anniversary 1-volume edition of Lord of the Rings, and it includes all of the glorious appendices.
Have you read the appendices as well as the books?
No, I can't say that I've read them thoroughly. But I came across this paragraph and I thought, this is the kind of thing that you could pull out of here and use as just the basic premise to start writing a movie with. So I think this is an example of like what they're going to do with these movies that they're planning to come up with. So here's out of the Appendix A. If you've got the 50th anniversary edition, it's page 1040. You can turn to it yourself.
That has us open. He's reading this.
Okay, a great host came out of Angmar in 1409, and crossing the river, entered Cardolan and surrounded Weathertop. The Dunedain were defeated, and Arveleg was slain. The tower of Amansul was burned and razed. But the Palantir was saved and carried back in retreat to Fornost. So, if you're a mega fan, or you just remember from the films, Weathertop is where they escaped to right after leaving the Shire with Aragorn, and that's where they were ambushed and Frodo was stabbed by that evil blade by one of the Black Riders.
I see.
And so this is the story of, Weathertop at one time was a fortress and a lookout tower, and it was attacked, and there was a big battle, and it fell. But the little Palantirs, those like seeing stones, were saved, and they made it out.
Ah.
So you could take that and be like, okay, this story is going to have that as the climax. Now let's sort of fill in the gaps and figure out how to like work up to this all happening.
So there's like touches of the original story in it, but it doesn't change the original story at all.
Exactly.
It adds a depth.
Exactly.
More meaning.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So I think actually these new movies could be pretty cool.
They could be cool, but there's still, I think, a high bar to reach. Because you don't want to, like, have something crash and burn that's meaningful to people.
There's a statement that has some truth to it. And I'll apply it to Star Wars because this is where I heard it. No one hates Star Wars like a true Star Wars fan. Meaning that the people who care the most are the most critical.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, they use a new technology, like George Lucas always did, and then the fans are like, but we missed the puppets and the practical effects. It's not the same. So it's tough. It's going to be tough to please people.
They can do it. I believe in them.
Yeah, I do too. So I would love to hear if you are a mega Lord of the Rings fan, do you have an idea? Maybe Warner Brothers is listening and maybe they'll use your idea.
That's likely. You never know.
Totally. It's totally likely. But at least we want to know what your theory is or your idea is for a future Lord of the Rings movie. You can drop that in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. And head over to our website, thetelescopeshow.com, to listen to all the episodes. Until next time, love you. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.